We're a little over 4 hours away from a rematch of last year's Champions League semi-final. It's the same stage, same match, same teams. But we start the first leg at the Bernabeu. This wasn't the scene last time around. We do hope that it turns out to be a match that lives up to its billing. Shane Dias, my dear colleague, joins me as we build up to this particular match. Easily, in fact, not that easy when you look at the two semi-finals that you have at hand. There's history definitely attached to the other one. This, of course, has been a rivalry which has been more recent than the second semi-final, which is also something we'll be talking about in another video. But here, as we build up to this big clash which will be played at the Bernabeu today, Shane Dias, what do you think when you talk about these two teams? Just so much riding for the both of them, in particular for the team that'll be playing in blue tonight.
Absolutely. I think for Manchester City, they're looking at treble, historic thing. Only potentially are going to be the second English team to have accomplished that. Even for Real, though, I mean, they'd want a Champions League because they've been pretty ordinary in the league. La Liga, they're well off the pace. Yes, they won the Copa del Rey. That also was down to Barcelona's capitulation in the second leg semi. But as much as it was anything else, so full credit to them, take nothing away. But, they've always been the kings of Europe, the kings of the Champions League. 14-time champions, was it? Or was it 15? 15-time champions. That's the thing. So, I mean, you'd be a fool to count out Real Madrid. But, if you look back a year ago versus now, both teams have changed. And I'd argue that City have changed a lot for the better. So, it really looks like a very daunting task trying to stop this City side. I mean, Bayern Munich found out the hard way. They were unable to, stop the juggernaut, especially the juggernaut that is blonde, has very long hair and is scoring goals for fun. I'm of course talking about Erling Haaland.
12 goals for him. He's the highest goal scorer for Manchester City in the Champions League. But this is how the two teams are different when you look at the Champions League. While Erling Haaland has been their top man in front of goal with 12 goals, then I think you've got a De Bruyne who's got about 3 goals, and I think it's Gundogan who has just about 15 goals, let's say, coming in from the top 3. But you look at Real Madrid, and I was just doing a little bit of research, how Real Madrid are a little different than Manchester City going into, let's say, this matches. Because with Man City, they will be looking to feed Erling Haaland at all times. With Real Madrid, by the way, you don't know what Real Madrid firstly turn up. And we're going to be touching upon that as well, how Real Madrid have been hot and cold this whole season. But if you look at their goal scorers, I think it's Vinicius Jr. with 6 goals, who's their top goal scorer. Then you've got Rodrigo, who's also put in another 5 over there. So you have other players as well who are scoring goals for Real Madrid, and just not just one person that you're looking forward to get you those goals.
Correct.
And who else would know better than Manchester City? But because it wasn't just Benzema getting you the goals, last year, because you saw those 2 goals that came again later at the latter half of that second leg came in from other sources as well. So that is going to be one area that Manchester City will again be sort of looking at. You agree, Shane?
Absolutely. And I think Rodrigo, it's a good point you brought up, because I think he's got 5 goals, I think of which 2 or 3 at least, if not more, are from the bench. So he's a very potent option off the subs bench, because he doesn't start games. He's not a sure shot starter, unlike, say, Vinicius just yet. But when he does come off the bench, he has the ability to get you those late goals. And I think with Real, as you say, you did point out that they have spread across the goals. Someone like a Fede Valverde and Asensio, even Benzema.
I think Benzema's got 4 goals. So I think cumulatively their top 3 bring you about 17 odd goals. As compared to Manchester City, who've got 12 straight away coming from Erling Haaland. By the way, if I'm not wrong, I think Julian Alvarez has also scored a couple of goals.
Yeah, again off the bench a lot of the time.
Again off the bench, even though in this particular fixture, I don't really think his involvement will be that much. Unless, of course, City find themselves 2 goals down, and let's say right towards the end, you then throw in, Alvarez as well into the mix, and then you hope to at least get 1 goal so that you have something to play for in the second leg, which will be played at the Etihad. But Shane, let's just talk a bit about Real Madrid. We know they're a different side when it comes to Champions League. Their love affair with this competition goes back a long way, and it's something that is very dear to them. We've seen them lost to teams placed 15th in the La Liga.
Yeah.
We recently saw them lose to Girona as well a couple of weeks back. And then they beat Barcelona the way that they did, and there they find themselves at the Champions League semi-final stage. So what is it with Real Madrid, and what Real Madrid do you think are turning up tonight?
That's the thing with Real Madrid, it's hard to tell what side of them is turning up. They're very much a Jekyll and Hyde season. They've been having that sort of a season because again, if you go back just a year ago, you know, you had that confidence that come the big match, no matter what the situation, they weren't giving up. And this time around, I think, Madrid were flattered a little bit. They had a pretty weak Chelsea in the quarterfinal. They steamrolled them. It was never going to be a problem. Yeah. But City right now are a very different beast. Like I remember last year, they had Real Madrid had like this incredible run where they had comeback wins against PSG, Chelsea, then City. And then the only really easy match they had was the Liverpool final. But this time around, this Real Madrid team, again, it really depends on which Real Madrid show up. Because if that Real Madrid shows up, then, you know, the old war horses, the Luka Modric, the Kroos, the Benzemas, they have plenty of fight in them. But if, you know, they get overwhelmed by City's early pressing, or if City can nick an early goal or two, then they're going to find themselves under the cosh because the City side are a well-drilled, well-oiled unit. You have to be very, very good to outpress a German team the way they outpress Bayern Munich. And yes, you could say that, oh, Bayern, you know, they were in a bit of upheaval. They just sacked Nagelsmann, brought in Tuchel, but then that's their fault. They shouldn't have done that. In hindsight, it's proving to be a sillier decision
than
by the minute. Exactly. It would have just been made more sense to stick with Nagelsmann. He'd gotten you no losses in the Champions League up until that point. Imagine won 6 out of 6 group games in a group that featured Inter Milan and Barcelona. Not an easy group. And then after that beat PSG twice over 2 legs. I never understood that sacking, and I'm a big Tommy T fan. I mean, he won Chelsea the Champions League last time around, but it still made no sense making that change. Could have waited till the end of the season. And also, where was he going to go? Spurs? No disrespect to Spurs, but he was not going there. I think he would not have wanted up to be the third ex-Chelsea manager to go there and fail. You would not want to do that. Spurs need someone younger. He was never fitting that profile. So, I don't know. With Bayern, big mystery. But I think City right now, you know, they've been building up to this. And right now, what was the one problem with City last year, we said?
They didn't have an out-and-out attacker.
They didn't have an out-and-out goal
because
scorer.
Remember, last year you played all the
with a false nine.
With a false nine, and who was that? Kevin De Bruyne, who had opened the scoring, let's say, if I'm not wrong, in that 4-3 match that took place. But the one interesting thing that I've seen, you know, with City over the last few weeks is John Stones. You know, he's been played in the midfield, and you saw that in that Liverpool game as well.
Correct.
I think that was the first time you saw Pep play him there in the midfield to the right side, on the right hand side flank, if I'm not wrong. But
it was more right central. He was playing in the middle.
In the middle. So do you really think, and that's what I think, because with Pep Guardiola, he can tend to get a little over tactical at times. Do you see him putting John Stones back in the back line, or do you think he's going to have him in the midfield?
No, it's an interesting question. I will say this. The one thing, if he does it this time around, it won't be an over thing because it worked to perfection against Liverpool and a couple of other sides. So what
Arsenal?
Yes.
As well.
Yes. Well, the tactic you're referring to is what is essentially being called a box midfield, wherein you would have one centre back who'd kind of push forward and then be like a fourth midfielder, so that what happens is if they lose possession, they can just isolate in the middle of the park. And you know, it wouldn't surprise me because again, what is Real Madrid's biggest strength? Their midfield for me. Yes, their forward lines are good.
Counter-attacking power as well.
And where does that come from? The midfield. It comes from Kroos being able to ping long balls. It comes from Modric being able to carry. I mean, that guy must have some next level genes because he doesn't age.
And we're missing the key man here.
Chouameni.
Not just him, Vinicius Junior, the top man right now with the goal scoring form that he is in. By the way, he was the one who scored that goal for you last year that sealed the Champions League for you.
Exactly.
So Vinicius, and which is where I think, you know, Pep Guardiola may just be pushed back to his conventional 11, I feel, and let's say maybe have a Walker play on the right hand side, because you need somebody to be countering the pace of Vinicius Junior, because he's, by the way, a big threat. Even if Manchester City managed to be, let's say, having a decent share of possession, and you don't expect them to be steamrolled, let's say, by the opposition in the opening stages. But let's say, even if they go 2-2 with Real Madrid, Pep Guardiola will be extremely wary of the pace that Real Madrid carry on the counter attack, and that's where I think you'll probably want to go back to your conventional 11, have a conventional right back in place, not play somebody. I think Ake did pick up an injury, so Akanji may be on the right hand side. You don't want to be doing all of that. Perhaps just have your conventional right back there in place. To be able to take on somebody like a Vinicius Junior.
Yeah, at times Pep can be his own worst enemy when it comes to Champions League fixtures. Tends to overthink things a little bit more than necessary. But I think, see, this is a match where, and remember, we live in an era now where away goals don't matter. So I think he's just going to not try and tweak his system too much. Look to stick to basics, as we say. Do what he feels has been working. Maybe sometimes you might just see a tactical switch in the middle of the game. He tends to do that as well. He favors that a lot, that he'll see something's not working or something which could be working better. But I think, it's going to be sticking to their similar 4-3-3 or 4-1-4-1 because they have like the likes of Hundigan and Bernardo Silva who don't really count as traditional eights. So, even De Bruyne for that matter. So, I think he'll stick to tactics, but don't be surprised if he overthinks things. He just has that habit of, and it can often lead to self-destruction. I think the best example of it was in that year where Ronaldo absolutely demolished them when he was playing for Real. That was I think 4-1 or something like that. That was a terrible match.
And he was at Bayern.
That was when he was talking. That was when Guardiola was managing Bayern. And he himself admitted that, no, I probably went wrong with the tactics here. Again, overthinking really comes into play. But if I'm Real Madrid, I actually go out there and play a full game with full exuberance because I don't think I'm the favourites here. I do not see Real being the favourites of this match, despite them being the holders. City, I think for me, were the favourites even against Bayern. Once they knocked out Bayern, I think they're the sure shot favourites in this particular match. But again, that's what I'm saying. If I'm Real Madrid, I go out there and play with no pressure. Say, okay, no problem. I'll be expressive. I'll be attacking. I'll look to take the game to City. And we know that City aren't bulletproof, let's say. They are beatable, despite the contrary to popular belief. They're not indomitable the way they were in maybe say 18-19. I think overall those sides were better. This side is a little bit more in a building phase still somehow, because there's a few young players there, So again, if I'm Real Madrid, I look to channel that spirit, which they tend to do more often than not in Champions League.
And better than anyone else.
Absolutely, it baffles me. I remember even last time thinking, when do the comebacks end? 3 matches, 3 knockout rounds, fixtures, legs, whatever you want to call them, 3 comebacks. So they have that ability. I'll never count Real Madrid out. But I think City are favourites in this match.
A quick word though, before we let's say get to predictions on the 2 centre forwards who are going to be in action today. And since you're closer to the Real Madrid crest, I'll just put you in the spot. What do you make of Karim Benzema and what sort of role do you think he plays tonight?
Key role for sure. Because again, even if he's not the main goal scorer, you know for a fact that they're going to be marking him or looking to man mark him. And he's a threat in a variety of ways because he's someone who,
moves very quickly within the lines.
Yes, and not just even within the lines. He doesn't hesitate to drop deep, go wide. He'll let Vinicius run centrally.
It's his ability to almost be like a false 9 at times. He doesn't mind coming in deep and playing, let's say, a Rodrigo on one front or a Valverde, let's say, makes that run, and Vinicius, of course, operating down the left hand side.
Absolutely.
So Vinicius Junior coupled with Rodrigo and Karim Benzema make for a formidable forward line. Speaking of Manchester City and in particular about that man Erling Haaland, 51 goals?
51 goals, 51 in all competitions.
51 in all competitions, 12 in the Champions League. The man looks in unstoppable form at the moment. And he too, I think the one similarity between the 2 centre forwards that we're talking of, I think it's their ability to make those runs, to be quick within the lines. Yes, the differentiating factor for me between the 2 is while a lot more people can operate around, or let's say, I'd like to put it this way, that Benzema would perhaps have other few people, he'll probably get the best out of a Rodrigo and a Vinicius Junior. Not particularly the case with Erling Haaland. I'm not too sure if he can make the others play around him.
His link-up play is a work in progress. I get your point.
It's a work in process, exactly. So, but having said that, you give the man half a chance and he'll short give you a goal. That's been his
MO this year, really.
This whole year, and which is why Real Madrid, who have been porous, by the way, on one too many occasions this whole season, will be extremely wary of this guy because you just cannot give him an extra inch.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to the battle between Haaland and Courtois, because I think Courtois is going to have to be on his A game to try and ensure that they don't concede too many.
To be fair, I think has been in decent form.
Oh, he's been in very good form, but he's too often than not been the last line of defense in a literal sense, that the defense in front of him is doing next to nothing at times. It just happens with Real. They tend to, switch between, they blow very hot and cold. So again, if that Real Madrid turn up, then expect it running. Because the City side are too good. If they have to have a chance.
And the one thing Manchester City don't want to repeat at the Bernabeu like last year is switching off.
Correct.
I think they switched off in those last 5 minutes and they weren't expecting, and they didn't know, especially after the first goal. I think that header that they conceded, I think they didn't know how to react.
Correct.
They weren't expecting that goal to come, and it comes out of nowhere. It comes out of a cross, which firstly was a brilliant cross, but then they weren't expecting that goal.
Absolutely. And that happens, by the way, with Real. A lot of their goals last year, even the one against Chelsea, is just a momentary switch off for 2 seconds, boom. And that's it. What do? But that's Real Madrid for you. They have that quality.
Alright, you've made your choice as far as the favourites go. A prediction from you.
Oh, I think City are favourites, but I think it'll be a close match. Say maybe a 2-1. I think it'll still be all to play for once they get to the Etihad.
I've got a similar prediction in mind, but I'd probably go with Real Madrid. For obvious reasons, I wouldn't want to see Manchester City go on and get closer to that treble. Of course, since you speak of the treble, it's on the cards. Yes, we all know that. But again, it'll boil down to Manchester United game also. Remember that FA Cup final, if that treble is to get completed or not. But again, I think for the spirit that Real Madrid play with, I think they'll also take some confidence from that win against Barcelona that they had a couple of weeks back. So they want to remind themselves that they can take on the big boys also at and of course, the fact that they'd beaten City in this fixture last year at this venue too, I think it was 3-1.
It'll give them some confidence.
Yes, it'll give them some confidence. So yeah, I'll go, but Manchester City are going to be no pushovers, make no mistake. But I'm going to go with 2-1 win for Real Madrid. That's what we made of this fixture coming up in, let's say, just under 4 hours time. Let us know in the comment section what your predictions are and how you found our analysis to this particular game. If there are some points that we probably missed out on, you can always share your thoughts and analysis with us. We always love hearing from you guys. Thanks so much from Shane Dias and me. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.